Boom, and we're live. Hello and welcome everyone to the Wide World of Warhammer. With us today, we've got aficionado of the New South Wales Sydney scene, and my best Ben that paints, the best Ben painter I know in the planet for sure. We've got Pommy Ben in the house. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great, thanks, Sam. Good to be here.
That's great to be here. As well as, I mean, you're one of the best painters I know as well. Not just the best Ben, because Benny Way is absolutely trash. No, he's all right with a paintbrush, but he's no Pommy Ben.
No, mate, he's shithouse. He's terrible.
Too good. So Pommy Ben, for people who don't know, is someone in the New South Wales scene who's loved and plays a bunch of TO's events and has some beautiful armies that showcases. And so we're going to talk to him about, I guess, what balancing all the triads of gaming, TOing, I guess, for some, and then painting and doing the hobby, as well as just talking all things army painting as well along the way. Because as someone who's trying to upgrade their own army in painting, I'm sure Pommy Ben has some tips to share. So, but before we deep dive into all the tips and tricks and why slap chop's the best method, and we should just all go slap chopping away. Ben, so what's your background in Warhammer? So, like, how long have you been playing for? And like, people who don't know about you, like, how'd you get into it all?
Well, I'm pretty old, Sam. So I think I got into Warhammer when I was about probably about 12. Oh my God, Dale, far out. Here we go. Here it starts already. Look at this. Anyway, no, I got into Warhammer about the age of 12. So I think that was tail end of Rogue Trader. May have been the start of second. And I think my first figures were first plastic figures. So it was a plastic orc box set. You had like 30 boys in box, and all the characters and all the other models were still pewter. But, yeah, that was where I first got my start, and I didn't know what I was doing, and none of us did. But we just enjoyed like rolling dice and throwing models around. And I think, what did I do? I had a break for a while. Got back in. I did some Warhammer Fantasy. I was a member of a club in the UK. Everyone laughs about this, but this fantasy club, you weren't allowed to play at the club night on a Thursday or something, Thursday evening, I think it was, unless your army was fully painted.
High standards.
It's crazy. It was nuts. I know. And then I think I played Skaven for a while. Yeah, that took up a lot of time. So back then, fantasy armies were big, and Skaven was the biggest. There's a lot of models. Then I had another break. Got back in again in 8th. Start playing. I think just got back on Thousand Suns, and I spent ages trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because I wanted to do something good paint wise. I wanted a good hobby project, and Thousand Suns were pretty good. Bit of a challenge, and then met a few people in the scene. This was in Australia, and met a few people in the scene. And Sean, one of my Warhammer mates, used to flog me with his Drakari like every week, like repeatedly. That was back in the days when there was no terrain. He just used to shoot me off the board every week. It was really frustrating. And then I think I did my first tournament in 9th. Yeah, it was in early 9th with Death Guard, and I went up to Madawi. No, I didn't. I went to Maitland. It was a good games Maitland. I did an RCT there, and I came 4th in my first tournament. I think I drew with Chris Tongue in my first game, first tournament game. And I met Pete the Pigeon, and he was like, "Did you just draw with Chris?" And I went, "Yeah. What's the big deal?" It's really good. And then it all went down from there.
What you think about this is a success story, right? Like, the good old Disney film, like you have the initial success, then it all downhill, but then
that's my best result. I'm sure it is. Actually, I think I came second at one of my own tournaments. I was just filling up the numbers, and I came second.
no collusion at all there when you're TOing, right? It's like you don't judge a rule. I think it works this way in my favor for sure. Absolutely, right?
Yeah, 100%. But no, that first tournament at Good Games, I think I met Benny Way there, and I just said to him, "Oh, you look like you know the area. Where's the best coffee?" And that was love at first sight.
There we go. That Australian culture right there, right? Find the best coffee shop and then go from there.
Yeah, 100%.
So between, I guess, like fantasy and starting in 8th edition with 40k, is that when you moved to Australia and have been here ever since?
Yeah. I think I sold all my models when I left the UK in like 2011, and I really wish I hadn't. You know, I had a lot of metal Tyranids, and I really wish I still had them. That was a real shame. Do you know what I put? I had an undead Blood Bowl team, which I put up on eBay, and it went for like £300 because it just like couldn't get the figures anywhere. You know, they were like long gone in terms of production, and I remember thinking, maybe I made a mistake. But no, it sort of cleared the decks for lots of nice new models, and let's face it, the models now are much nicer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can, if you wanted to now. I don't know if you saw recently the Blood Bowl team for the vampires. They're all like very like stereotypical 80s vampires with all the nice handkerchiefs and like a very Count Dracula-esque. It's very stereotypical. There you go. You can just reinvest that money in that and have some nice prettier ones if you want to. So, no, awesome. But as people may know, like, and people may see you on Discord or your Facebook profile, sometimes it looks like you're quite the athlete, Ben, and you still are quite the athlete. So is that sort of like from 40k to from triathlons or Ironmans to 40k? Is that why you transferred over? Like, what's that relationship there?
There is no relationship. No. I used to do quite a lot of long distance triathlons, and but it was there's not enough room in your life for 40k and triathlon. Triathlon takes up all of your spare time, and I think one of the reasons I sort of like dived into Warhammer with a vengeance was because I stopped doing competitive triathlons. I think that was sort of like, it was probably winding down before COVID. Sort of like I've been training hard for probably 5 years and got as good as I was ever going to get. And as you get older, it's difficult to watch your performance just go like this. But with the sort of, I still run and ride a bit. I can't ride at the moment because I've done my back in. Classic old man's back. Yeah. I'm running 3 times a week, normally, and when under normal circumstances, I'm riding twice a week. But that's just something that myself and my wife like to do, but not in a competitive way anymore.
No, so the Warhammer hobby bug has taken that competitive edge instead, right? Or is it just
pretty much? Although, to be honest, Sam, I'm not really playing much these days. All I'm doing is running tournaments and sort of like delivering terrain to people. It feels like a job now. I was so grumpy on Saturday. I took my army and I really wanted to go. I spent ages devising an amazing list, and I thought it was amazing. And I was just hoping someone would drop. No one did. Oh, I was so angry.
Never lucky. It's always a way, right? Like someone who's run events as well. It's like, the times where you don't want to play and don't want to feel in, like that's when you feel in. But the times like, I really want to play, I really feel like feeling in. No one drops, so there's nothing happening. He's like, God damn it! Or
100%. So I either take an army or I take models to build, and every time I take models to build, someone has to take a buy. So I thought, right, well, I'm just going to take an army, and then every time I've taken an army since, it was like, no one wants to drop. So that'd be a lesson to you. Anyone that turns up to my events, please drop after lunch so I can have a game.
Only if Ben wants to play, when Ben wants to play a game. You pay the money, I'll play the games. There we go. That's the answer. Too good. So like we talked about the hobby and painting side of things. So is that the thing, I guess, that draws you into the hobby most, or is it the gaming side of things that draws you in? And as we talk along, I'll be sharing some slides of Pommy Ben's armies and stuff like that, which are beautiful and gorgeous for people who are listening to the podcast feed. So be sure to check in. And yeah.
I like both aspects, actually, Sam. I mean, I like, look, I love the painting. It's great. And truth be told, I'm probably better at the painting than playing. But I like, once I've painted something and I'm proud of it, I like to show it off. You know, you like to put it on the table and receive all the all the praise from people. That never gets old. It was every time I bring my Harlequins out, it's like bittersweet, isn't it? Because I get clubbed by everyone right now, but lots of people turn up and stand at the table and go, "Oh, I love your figures. They're great. Models are fantastic. Your army looks fantastic." That's always nice. Sort of offsets that I'm losing every game.
Yeah, look. As long as it looks pretty, right, and if you get compliments on the way, and you put your effort and stuff in it, makes you feel better. So, is it? So, someone who's been in the hobby for quite a while, and has painted a bunch of armies and painted a bunch of models. Is the old adage, of you paint your new model and it's the first thing to die? Is that still true? Is that true? For all your experience, it's always the first thing to die, or it just fails and whiffs the first time you play it. Is that actually true in your experience?
It's happened with all the big models I paint. Yeah, that's 100% true. Like painting a bunch of Harlequin infantry, they always die. They always die to anything. But the big models, you don't expect them to die. Like Mortarion, I think he got. Actually, no, maybe he didn't. I think I played versus Sean Space Wars with Mortarion the first time after I painted him, and I think he actually survived. But Magnus dies every time, and I'm really sad because he's really well painted and he's lovely, and I spent a lot of time on him.
Poor Magnus. He's done nothing ever wrong, and of course he always gets punished. Poor guy. So, what is your process for painting army? And so maybe talk to the audience. So for people who don't know you, I understand you're someone who plans quite far in advance. So you almost take a year or so to actually plan and build and paint your army before you'll actually play it. Is that true, or what's your process generally?
It's pretty much like that. I mean, what I do is I paint an army for a year while I'm playing the one I painted the previous year. So I'm sort of painting my next army for the year after. But the games change so much these days that I've been sort of chopping and changing a bit. But I really wanted to play the Harlequins all this year, but oh my god, it's so painful. We got done dirty, man. We really did.
Yeah, sure. But, so, what's the
under normal circumstances, it is literally just paint an army for a year, get enough models together for any scenario, or a couple of different lists, and then play that for the next year. Get good at it.
Yeah, sure. So talking to Simon Gojkovic last episode, so he jumps around armies every 6 months or so. He'll play an army, then he'll switch, and then play for 6 months, play another army. Is that sort of a similar philosophy, but for a year generally? And is that just something
pretty much?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get a chance to play enough games to get good at it unless I play it for a fairly long time. If I played as many games as some of the other guys in the scene, a week, I'd probably get one game a week, really, unless I'm at a tournament. Get a few more, but I don't get enough practice games where you play with a good mate and you talk things through and you work out what's best and stuff like that. I don't get enough of those in, to be honest, right now. In fact, while I was just before I got on the call, I was trying to arrange my Saturday morning. I'm gonna have a practice game with a mate with the Death Guard and see how they go.
Yeah, sweet. I think a lot of people since the Balanced Star Slate have come out with all their Death Guard, all their Plague Marines and Terminators, and believe yet again maybe it's time again. So hopefully,
maybe it might be on. It might be on.
There you go. Morty can come out and maybe he won't die turn 1, but fingers crossed he'll die first battle round. But maybe we can hope, right? We can always hope.
Yeah.
So when you get your army painted, do you sort of try and go for like a quote unquote battle ready standard, like you get it nice and quickly done, or would you take one model or one unit all the way to completion into your top tier standard? Or what's the process like for you in that sense?
I get the whole set, one unit completely done to the highest, well, I guess the standard I'm aiming for with that army. So I guess some armies I'm not aiming for as high a standard as others. I mean, Death Guard's a pretty good example because they sort of, you can, you stick an Agrax wash over it and it's done, right? It's but with the Harlequins, it was just like finish one unit completely before moving on. Otherwise, I just can't face going back. So it's just like, going back and redoing models that you've already done. It's just that's the worst for me. But, yeah, get it done to the right standard. Put it in the box. Move on.
Very nice, very nice. I think people who like to say, "Look, I'll get it battle ready, but then I'll do the touch-ups later," just like lying to themselves, unless a select few legitimately go back and do it up. So in this painting process, so on screen for people listening, we got someone that Ben's Harlequin's army, which looks beautiful. Like all the diamonds look crisp and amazing. Are you generally someone who follows the Citadel method of like base, wash, layer, and then edge highlight all the way through, or do you try and play around with different mediums, like oil paints to do some blending, or using the airbrush? Like, what's your process like in that sense?
Yeah, look, there's something to be said for like the Citadel method, and if you're just getting into painting, there's so many great tutorials. All the Duncan Road stuff was, when I got back in 8th, it was like a godsend. It was like, it couldn't go wrong. You just copy what Duncan did, and things turn out pretty well. But I think as you sort of you move on to different armies, you want to try different things. So, you introduce something new. So you introduce an airbrush, you introduce oils, like you say. And that's exactly what I'm doing, right? So the Harlequins was, I guess, the first army I used an airbrush on. And to be honest, I wasn't ever going to get an airbrush. But during the great Death Guard green spray shortage of 2021, there was no way I couldn't paint my Death Guard. So I had to get an airbrush so that I could base coat my Death Guard. And to be honest, I never looked back because I was able to do these great transitions on the Harlequins. I wouldn't have been able to do the Harlequins. It just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, sure. So initial fade, so at the front of like the Sky Weavers and the Star Weavers, so from that black to red to make that gradual transition would, if you tried to do a regular brush, you would have to glaze to however many layers, so many, but with an airbrush you're able to achieve it. So
there's 5 colors on just the bodies. There's 3 different reds. And then you got the black and the white as well. So it's I don't know. Brush, to be honest. I'm sure some very talented people could do it.
No. Bugger that. We could leave that to Siege Studios and all those professional commission people, or those Golden Demon people. Like for us army painters, let's just use the tips and tricks we like to do. So so you said you like to try and explore different techniques and stuff like that now. So I know you're painting your Blood Angels at the moment. So what's the thing you're trying to explore while painting your Blood Angels?
No. Well, that's look, my style normally is like sort of super crisp and really neat. Even my Death Guard are a little bit sort of probably cleaner than they should be. But the Blood Angels try to go sort of a bit grimdark. So I've been using an oil wash and then sort of using white spirit to sort of clean off the highlights and things like that, so that you bring it back and it's got this sort of grimy appearance. So none of my you can see Dante there. He's not shiny. He's pretty grimy. All of my Sangard are pretty grimy and also pretty rubbish too. But there we go. That's a different matter. But yeah, I did 20 Sangard in the same style as Dante. You can see there, and they've never seen the table.
Yeah,
but that's my next thing. Yeah. So I'm starting to think about what I'm going to do next year, and I'll take votes on that. Yeah, what do people want to see me paint?
Oh, so you're saying you can be bribed? So you're saying that
I can be bribed,
large
100%.
You can be bribed. All right, we'll have to get Pommy Ben to paint like non-metallic metal custodes, and like we'll never see him again.
No, not non-metallic metal. Oh god. Oh dear. I've got a mate. Everyone knows Damien Ridgewell. He came second at Adelaide last year. Damo does non-metallic metal on a lot of his Dark Angels, and it's a constant joke that he's never got an army ready. He's always painting on the plane. He's always painting the pub before Adelaide. I can't beat that guy.
No, will never be a thing. Maybe for some special characters or one-offs, but never an army worth. Absolutely not. Too good. So I guess with these armies, so it looks like you've got various color schemes. So the Thousand Suns and the Blood Angels obviously done very traditional color scheme, but your Harlequins is, quite different with the red, black, and white. Is that something you plan far in advance, or do you sort of look to the lore for inspiration, or what's your process for that?
I don't really follow the lore too much when it comes to paint schemes. When I was sort of starting out back in 8, some models like Magnus you can see on screen right now. How can you not do them in the colours it's supposed to be, right? It's but things like Harlequins and to be honest, probably if I were going to do another Marine faction, I would probably do something wild, just something crazy in terms of colours, because you just got there's so much scope there. But I guess it depends. What I'm trying to say is it depends on the army, depends on the model. But there's a lot of research that goes into it up front. I don't just sit down with a model and go, all right, let's have a go, see what happens. I've got it all planned out. Sometimes the thing I have planned out doesn't work, and I have to go back to the drawing board a bit and rethink some of the colours. But sometimes it does, and actually the Harlequins did work out pretty well. I think there were a few refinements going forward. I changed some of the colours of the gems and things like that, but I did a mountain of research. I struggle to visualize what it's going to look like unless I can see a picture that someone else has done. So I sort of scour Google and Google Images for pictures of the color scheme I'm thinking to see how it looks. The execution doesn't matter. I'm just looking for an indication of how it might look. So pictures really help me visualize what my army is going to be like, and then I'll sort of embellish it and build on that.
Yeah, but sure.
A lot of planning up front.
Yeah, that's awesome. Would you generally try and do a test scheme? Would you test a model and then see if you like it as well, or would you just go all hog in? Yeah, you would definitely do it.
Yeah, I'll have a plan. So I'll have a sort of a written list of what things on the model are supposed to be what colors, and I'll execute that on one model to start with, and then I'll have a look at let's change that, or I won't. And then quite often that model goes in the isopropyl alcohol and gets rebased.
Try again. Yeah. So do you like the planning of an army and the whole I guess the collection of painting that army, or do you prefer painting single models and then, or maybe what they look like what they are supposed to play on the table motivates you to paint them, if it makes sense? So for example on the screen we've got the Chaos Knights. It's wow, I love these models, I want to paint them this scheme, and that's what motivates me to play them and paint them per se? Or is it more, look, I think the Chaos Knight rules are amazing, I'm going to paint them up and then play them?
Oh, it's never about the rules, Sam. Unfortunately, for me, it's always about what the model looks like and what sort of type of figure or faction I want to paint next. I just reading the comments here. So it's just ridiculous. I'm coughing so much grief from Ben and Dale. Anyway. Yeah, it's always about the figures. It's about the models, the paint schemes. It's never about the rules, and that's probably why I don't win more.
Yeah, sure. So is it like generally like, do you prefer painting like, I guess, units, or do you prefer painting centerpiece models, like so your Magnuses, your Mortarion, your big Chaos Knight like Rampager, or like your, I guess you had Kygnal, who's the Harlequin character per se, or you had Kygnal being converted into a Troop Master, I'm guessing. So do you prefer painting those like single centerpiece models, or do you prefer painting units, or it's sort of the blend between, and you sort of enjoy bits and both?
It's a good question. Look, no one likes painting like 60 of the same model. I mean, that's for sure. But just trying to think. I mean, I do like the big models. You know, the Primarchs are just great, and I think it's probably only a matter of time until I get Angron. I've got no army to play him with, but it's just like a paint exercise. So I think I might get him at some stage. But I do like the big demon Primarchs. They are so much fun to paint. You know, there's a real challenge around it, right? You've got to plan it. You've got to figure out, are you going to paint it in sub-assemblies? What are the attachment points like for the wings? Because I had all sorts of problems with Mortarion, because I don't know if you've painted him before, but if you don't use plastic glue on him, you've got to pin him, and the pin point is very, very small on his wings. Shout out to Vanda, who I discussed this at length with the other day. He said he pinned his, but he painted his as a whole, and he wished he'd done it in sub assemblies, or was it the other way around? Either way, we had about a 30-minute conversation about how shit Morty was to paint in sub assemblies. But anyway, I like the planning. I think I like the planning and the research thing. It's often more than I do the execution. Anyway.
Yeah, sure. Do you have like on your phone or like in a notebook somewhere, like all the ideas of your army schemes? I know for me, like when I was yeah, cool. Like, so I know for me, like armies I want to collect eventually, I start thinking and planning that, what would they look like? What sort of basing do I want? What color schemes do I want? And I'll always write them down. I'll get reference photos. So there you go.
Every time I finalize a paint scheme, I'll write it in an email and I'll send it to myself again. And every time I do something new, I just reply to that email and add the new scheme at the top. So I've got this email called recipes, which is about 20 pages long, which has just got all of the paint recipes for all of the things, like even down to, these are the gems, these are the green gems for the Harlequins, these are the blue gems for the Harlequins. You know, this is the green plasma glow on the Blood Angels, you know, those sorts of things. So, you know, even like individual components of each model I have written down, because seriously, there's a lot of paint out there, you know, and when you're as senile and as old as me, you come back to it and you go, what was that? And you look at you've got like 27 different blues, and you go, well, which one did I use? You know.
Yeah, you like to believe like, I'll remember this, but you never remember. You have to write it down.
You will never do that. That's a really good suggestion for people starting out. When you finally get something you like and you get the method that you want, write it down. Write it down so you're not going to lose it as well.
Yeah. You definitely won't regret it. That's for sure. If you write it down, that's for sure. So, and so obviously, so this Harlequin's army was being painted, and you went to the TNA Open. I think we were talking about before the show, but it won best painted. So, was it like, is that sort of generally a achievement you try and strive for? Is like every time you take an army to an event, you try and win best painted, or is it a side benefit when you do it?
Not every time. I mean, this army was kind of. Yeah, this was the army that I was going to do it with, and sort of I think when I first sort of took it out for for its first spin after finishing it, I went to Adelaide with it and got the runner up in the paint comp, and then I went to Capital Clash and won the best paint, and then I went to TNA and won best paint. So this is my showcase army. This is the one that does it, you know, and I took it deliberately to those tournaments, even though I knew it wasn't. Well, actually, it was still a great army for Adelaide this year, but for Capital Clash and for TNA, I knew it was a bad army. but I wanted to take it because I knew I was in with a pretty good shout for the paint.
Yeah. So why are you taking this army to go farm and win best painted prize? Is it just for your self satisfaction, or you just like to take it and like look at something for for the year, or just Benny Wade's just being a prick? I think it's
probably no, he's being a massive prick. You're going to read that out, Sam, or are you going to wait until the end?
So I'll read it out. So question from Benny Way. So why do you always go and farm interstate best painted prizes? So obviously alluding to the Capital Clash and TNA and all the future interstate events like
and Adelaide, yeah.
And Adelaide. Ben, if you had armies that could compete, you would do the same thing. Let's be real. Come on, don't lie. You're not coming close to the podium or winning anything else. So look, you're going to get some prizes on the way.
No, I know, right? Do you know what? I'm grumpy the whole weekend as my faction gets clubbed, and then it all sort of just get happy on the last day if I get best painted. It sort of makes it all.
Yeah, too good. So, what advice? So, for people who want to take their painting of armies and units to the next level, so as you sort of done, you said you've progressed and learned to, I guess, develop skills of your airbrush and the oils for the army to army. What advice would you give for people who want to improve their army painting and skill set per se? Like, do you have any tips or tricks or advice for them?
Do you know what? I think there's a couple of things. I think the first thing that I would do. Anyway, would never farm interstate points. Oh my god. I had some whoppers in my time. Anyway, tips for people who want to get their painting to the next level. Make sure you've got yourself a great painting. Get yourself one of those big LED daylight lamps. That's absolutely essential. You just can't get. You can't get to the same standard painting on, like on the couch under like normal lights. You just even under like bright sunlight, it just washes out the color. So you need a daylight lamp, but a good one. That's really important. I'd also say get yourself a couple of really good brushes as well. I use the Raphael 8404s. I use there's 3 sizes I use, but you don't need 3 sizes. A size 1 will pretty much do everything you want it to do. What else? Or look after your brushes as well. Get some Masters brush soap. Clean it all religiously. Clean it. Make sure that brush stays as good as it can, as long as it can, and clean it even like halfway through a session. Clean it. Clean your brush. That's really important because the brushes go downhill fast, especially the sable ones. The high quality sable ones. What else? Wet palette. That's a no-brainer. But otherwise, I think light brushes and that's probably the key thing. And do a lot of research. Watch a lot of videos. Do that too. There's tons of great painters out there who are doing some fantastic things. Just watch them and figure out how to do things and try it out.
Yeah. So, who are some of your recommendations for videos and content to watch? Like, I know I have my own personal artists and hobbyists I like to watch or consume content of. But who are some of yours, Ben, that you sort of draw inspiration from and maybe get to get tips and tricks from?
Like I say, back when I first got into back into 8th. Duncan's tutorials were really good because no one else was doing it, right? And he was just amazing. That's a solid grounding. Duncan's early tutorials on a lot of the man worked like an absolute Trojan. He was churning out content. Every new model, there was a paint video to accompany. So watch those for a start, and then when you get you master the basics. People like Darren Latham, Tyler Mengel, Mengel Miniatures. His first name's Tyler. It is Tyler, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry, So people who don't know, so Darren Latham is a current heavy metal painter for Games Workshop and a sculptor as well. It's very, very good. So you can easily search those and find his Instagram as well. So
annoyingly, he used to have a lot of videos on YouTube, but I think when he part of a new agreement with GW, they removed all his independent content, which is annoying because he had some fantastic videos on things like painting gems and painting, just painting sort of like wooden handles on things, and there's surprisingly a lot of that in. But he had some fantastic videos, and the guy is just an absolute genius. But there's people like Juan Hidalgo, I really like. He does incredible things with contrast paints, and I always thought contrast paints were just like a shortcut for people who just wanted to get stuff on the table super quick. But he sort of taught me that there is a place for contrast. There is a place for highly detailed, really, really sort of high quality finishes, and they do have their place. And I've got a lot of contrast paints because they all have their uses. I particularly like Wildwood over some gold as well. That's a really good recipe. But there's all sorts of just try things out, see what you like. There'll be a painter on YouTube who'll paint in the style that you like. And go for it. Every time you start a new army, try a different method, learn a new skill. That's I guess the best advice.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it. That sounds brilliant. So, and also, yes, as you said, like Darren Latham stuff originally was taken down, but there is a YouTube channel called Not Darren Latham, and obviously the not means it's not Darren Latham. So, and someone's reposted all his old videos. So, I'll have that linked below for people who want to watch them. And Juan Hidalgo, it's great as well. So, someone definitely to watch. So, and I think exploring different paint styles and trialing different things is fantastic to find what you love and what you don't like. So, I'm someone who could never. I would go insane trying to glaze everything and try and follow that edge highlight technique. But wet blending with oils and stuff like that, I love it. It's just amazing, and it works for me. I understand it, and it sort of works.
That's it, Sam. You'll find a method that you really kind of gel with, something that really works for you, and you love the result, and you love the kind of the process, and then think about the faction that will best, you can best apply that to, and then that's your next army, unless of course you're a meta chaser like Benny Way.
Exactly, like Benny Way. You just have to have the slap chopper life, right? Just slap chopper, barely battle ready all the way. But
no. He's so not a meta chaser. He's a snowflake.
he most certainly is in multiple ways. But I digress. So you mentioned before that you sort of sounds like you have a bit of an affinity for chaos. So you love Mortari, you love
my chaos.
You love your chaos. So what about chaos that you love? Is it maybe the models themselves? Is it, what is it? Or the way you can paint things? What is it about chaos that you love?
Yeah, I think they've got a lot of the models have got. There's a lot more scope to sort of try out new and different techniques. Space Marines and Space Marines, right? It's the same model just with a different color on it. Whereas I think with Chaos, you've got a lot of different types of model, and I'm sort of specifically drawn to the factions that have got the most sort of stylized models, the most unique models. Thousand Suns, Death Guard. I mean, I did start doing Chaos Space Marines, but sorry to say this, I think they were a little bit too generic for me. I'm sorry to say that. It's terrible, isn't it?
Needs more spikiness and needs more uniqueness. It's just, you don't want Space Marines with spiky bits. You want more spikiness and more. I
want I want a unique spiky bit that's not available in any other faction.
Yeah, fair enough. So I'm sure potentially if there's new Emperor's Children on the way, maybe Pommy Ben maybe persuaded.
I've said that before. I'm sure I said this. In fact, I think in a previous poll I said I was going to get on the World Eaters bandwagon, but I never did. I think I was stuck in my Harlequins at that point. But World Eaters still are a thing I'd like to do, and I'd like to do like a heresy, pre-heresy paint scheme with the white. I think that would be challenging, and you'd be able to do something quite special with that. Emperor's Children as well. If there's a 40k Fulgrim coming out, I'm all over that. And like 40k, new Noise Marines, a proper kit, I'd be well into that. Yeah.
Hell yeah! Well, we can always hope and see. Like we saw the 30k version, the Horus Heresy version, looks magnificent.
No, I was so disappointed, Sam. Why was it 30k? I was just like, oh my god, that's mine. Yes, they've released him. What? It's resin? Oh god.
Oh well, maybe hope we could draw inspiration from it, right? Maybe hopefully in the not too distant future with 40k. So, so as we alluded to before, so you're someone who TOs, who games, who does the painting as well. How do you try and balance all three of these things? Like, what makes you? You don't? Okay, fair enough.
I hardly play Warhammer anymore. No, it is difficult. It is difficult, and I would recommend if you've got aspirations to being a really good Warhammer player, don't start running events.
Yeah. So what made you start running events and the North Sydney League? I know you had the North Sydney League for a while, which was, for people who aren't aware, like sort of like over a month or 2 months, like you played in a pods per se, and over like played a game or however frequently you could and scored points. So what made you want to TO both RTTs as well as a league? Yeah, but what made you want to do those?
Well, I was really quite. So during COVID, I moved up to the Central Coast, and I kind of while the rest of Sydney was locked down, we weren't, and I had sort of access to, it's like some great gaming, up in the Lower Hunter and Dowie Maitland, it's like the heartland of 40k in New South Wales, isn't it? And I was like, oh my god, how come they got this scene here, but there's nothing in Sydney? I just couldn't believe that it was like it was pumping up there, but there was so many players in Sydney, but there was just no events. There was nothing, It was like go to your Warhammer store on a Thursday evening and you might get a game, but you can only play 1,000 points, and you can only, or you can't occupy the table for more than an hour and a half or something. It's just like I couldn't believe that there wasn't a scene. There wasn't an organised scene. So I sort of, I guess Ben and Dale sort of. Nope. I really pushed them to get me on the team. I think that's how it worked. Benny will put in the chat. I really wanted to be part of the team, and I really wanted to spread the down under 40k kind of vibe that I was experiencing up on the coast to Sydney. So when I moved back after COVID, it was like, right, how can we get a similar kind of thing going down here? And the league is the place you start. Right? Leagues are community builders. They're a really great tool for bringing people together, for gauging the enthusiasm of the scene, and for starting to build a brand and a sort of a core of gamers. And then when you get to sort of like critical mass, you go, right, okay, let's run a tournament, let's see how it goes, and then it all just goes from there. And then the unfortunate thing is that running a league it can be quite a lot of work. There's a lot of admin to do. Pete the Pigeon will back me up on this. Pete's our spreadsheet wrangler. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that goes into all the pairings and the matchups and all those sorts of things. But to be honest, now that we're running tournaments every month in Sydney, like 30-person tournaments every month, there's not really that, it's not 100% necessary to run league as well, because I think we've sort of successfully built the community. That's not to say it's not going to happen again, but I just don't have the bandwidth to run it right now. But if someone listening wants to run the league in Sydney, come and talk to me, because we'll set you up with the tools, and I'll get Pete to wrangle some spreadsheets for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they'll be more than willing to. I mean, Greek Alex doesn't do anything, right? Surely we can wrangle him in.
Yeah, he does nothing with his time. The bloke is an absolute waster. If we can fill his day, I consider that a win.
I know you did a massive amount of work in the North Sydney League, and I know there's a couple South Sydney leagues as well. So look, but with monthly RTTs and stuff like that between yourself and then I know down south, so the Rellan crew. So people who are unaware about Sydney, so Sydney, the Mecca of New South Wales, like the capital city. So there's generally a North and a South Sydney per se, split by a river, and so Pommy Ben generally runs like the north of Sydney per se, and then there's another group, so Narellan, which is like an hour south of Sydney Centre, is the south of Sydney per se, and there's some people around there as well who are south of the Harbour Bridge and on the river and all that jazz. So, but yeah, I think as you said, look, with monthly RTTs, like there's a natural attrition per se, plus everything else. So yeah. I guess let me to ask the question. So what makes the Sydney scene for 40K so unique, maybe compared to what you see in central coast of New South Wales and maybe the rest of Australia from what you can tell? Because if I'm fair to say, it's absolutely had a massive explosion over this past year or two. Like you've seen so many people coming out of there, and very good players. That
yeah, look, Sydney. I'll probably point out that the big challenge around running events in Sydney is real estate. Look, for those of you that don't know, Sydney's a pretty expensive place, and finding someone to run events is not easy. So I think it sort of all hinges on finding the right venue. And shout out to Northern Beaches Council. They have, my God, I can't believe how kind they've been to us for our events. They found an additional 20 tables and moved them to our venue just for our tournament. So that venue came with 10 tables. We needed 30 to run a 15-table tournament. And they went, "Oh, that's fine. We'll get you another 20 tables." I'm like, okay. They're amazing, and they charge completely reasonable rates as well. It's not. I mean, I spoke to like every RSL within about 20 kilometres of me when I was living on the beaches, and some of them were saying, "Oh, well, we want $2,500 for the day," and I'm like, "Okay, it's not really going to happen then, is it?" And we don't open before 9 on a Saturday. And I'm like, "It's not going to happen either, then, is it?" So it was a real challenge, but I can't believe I didn't sort of twig and go, right, let's go straight to the council. One of their community centres will be fine. But to be honest, when I spoke to them, rather than just like browsing their website and trying to find a venue online, they couldn't do enough to help. So shout out to them. But that's the key to Sydney, I think. Just venues.
Yeah. So what about the player base? What makes you think unique in that sense? Obviously, the venue hire is obviously expensive. I think that's something that can be shared across the world, like something like New York or Toronto and like Vancouver as well. I know Sydney and Vancouver get compared a lot for our international listeners. Like it's a very similar harbour-based city, very expensive housing. But we could talk about real estate later behind the scenes. But what makes the player base sort of unique to Sydney? You think? Is there something about something in the water that makes them different, or
I don't know, man. I mean, we've got there's a bunch of really good players. They've always been good, right? We've got some really good players who, I guess, help lift everyone else. So if you start out with a core of good players, then new players come on, and they might have a bit of a rough time for the first couple of events, but they start to think, okay, here we go. That exposure to good players makes you a better player. And I think gradually we've got some, we've got like, we regularly have like 2 or 3 Team Australia players turn up at our RTTs. Michael Vanderhaven keeps calling it the Shark Tank. He's only just started coming, but he says this is ridiculous. You can't have this many good players in the same place. But I think, while it still caters for newbies, there's that core, on the top tables who are slowly but surely dragging everyone else up. You know what I mean? When you see how to pilot, if you play someone who's at the top of their game, playing the same faction as you, and you get like the privilege to play against them, they basically show you how to play your faction. And you're like, oh, okay, it's a real learning experience. And I think that repeated exposure to these great players makes everyone better.
Yeah, and I think their willingness to also teach and learn from them as well. Like, yes, they'll win most of the time, but they'll teach you and they'll tell you your flaws. Like, I know Greek Alex is amazing at being a say, look, I think your positioning here was wrong. I think you did this mistake or this mistake. And look, obviously, Brody Milton's someone who just moved back into Sydney, New South Wales, and a gent, and will teach you a Team Australia player there. And look, there's a bunch of others. Like, I'll be here for the rest of the day talking about all the great Sydney players who
and lovely blokes as well. You know, can't do enough for, you know. Look, if they're not gonna be mean to you if you beat them in round one, they'll give you a hand. They'll teach you. They'll say, you know, they're obviously going to beat you, but they're gonna do it in a nice way where you don't feel like you're like you're being brutalized. They'll teach you. They'll give you some learning points along the way, and they'll really bring you along. And I think actually this is key. We've got this sort of second tier just below the Team Australia guys at the top of the scene, who are coming along, and they're really chasing on the heels. And I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but I think a lot of them know who they are. They're sort of like vying for that sort of Team New South Wales, and then potentially that Team Australia spot. And I think we've got some real depth coming through in New South Wales. It's going to be exciting to see in the next couple of years.
Absolutely. So, but just don't forget to let that Pommy Ben play a game every once in a while at RTT. Okay,
just if you could just drop, the ideal is to drop round 2, because round 3 I want to be packing up while people finish.
There we go. That's the ideal. There we go. So we have some questions from our viewers and audience members. So for the great one, Pommy Ben. So. But firstly, off the wrap from the live show from Dale Sumner. So if you had to be trapped on an island with one other down under 40k member for 1 year, who would it be and why? So for people who don't know, so like there's Benny Way, Dale Sumner, Pete the Pigeon, yourself, like all some other down under 40k members. Who would it be and why? Who would you want to be stuck with on an island for 1 year?
That's really tough. I mean, part of me wants to be trapped on an island with Dale, so I don't have to listen to all of his voice messages. You know, he'd just be there, right? I wouldn't. I once had to sit through a 6-minute voice message from Dale, and it was fucking drivel. There was nothing in it. I'm sure he was drunk. Anyway, I don't know. Could I spend a year on an island with? I think that'd be fine, to be honest. I think Dale would drive me up the wall after a while. Pete would be fine, I'm sure. Benny would be fine. Either one, just not Dale.
Anyone but Dale.
No phones either, because I don't want his messages coming through.
Oh, too good. Well, that's the answer. So the other question we have is: have you and Matt Lane had a DNA test confirm that you aren't long lost brothers? So on screen, we'll see a picture of I guess yourself. A doppelganger? Like, what's the go here, Ben? Like,
look, I gave. Look, it was a standing joke, and look, I gave Matt Lane my glasses, so it confused everyone. And we're going to start charging royalties on this photo because it's just ridiculous. It's been used so much. Oh God! No, but now we actually message each other and go, "What are you wearing, mate?" So we don't turn up to events wearing the same outfit.
Oh, come on. You guys are the most powerful and celebrity couple. Like, we just love seeing you guys all together, dressed up and coming together.
Oh my God. Too funny. We hardly ever play as well. Can you imagine us playing each other at the same event? No one would know who's winning, would they?
No. That just have to, I guess, pick their armies, but they're both pretty decent, gorgeous armies, so it'd be hard to choose. Oh,
yeah, he's a good painter as well. Yeah.
Yes, he's got a beautiful.
Actually, he spoke to me. He said, "Are you going to Pantheon?" I don't know. I want to take my Harlequins, but I'm not taking them if you're taking yours because I'll lose. I won't get the best painting.
Oh, too good. So before we wrap things up, so Pommy Ben, any final shout outs or plugs you want to have for those listening that you want to link to or allude to, maybe on Horizon? Is there any events that people could buy tickets to or anything?
Yeah, I guess a shout out for Sydney RTTs. There'll be one next month. I think it's on the. Is it on the 22nd? No, 20. Anyway, there's one in October. sort of back end of October. I'll put up the tickets next week, or this week, depending on how my week goes. Get on the Patreon. I don't know if you guys know, but if you sign up to the Patreon, $5 a month, you get advanced access to our events. And because the ticket sales for advanced access don't go through BCP, you save yourself $3. So realistically, Patreon's only costing you $2 a month. So there you go. Get on the Patreon. Oh, and come and see me at any of our events. I'm selling dice like hotcakes. Down under 40k dice. You love them.
Look at this.
Dale, message me. Is there anything else I need to say, Dale?
That sounds perfect. That's amazing. And look, I've seen the pictures of the dice. I haven't got my hands on any just yet, but I'm looking forward to rolling some of them. They look beautiful.
They're amazing. They roll so well. They took me to a 2 and 6 at TNA 2 weeks ago. I made none. It didn't matter.
Even with your poor play, they took you to a 2 and 6, right? Like, the dice carried you.
I smashed out a 2 and 6. Yeah. But I did drink a lot of beer. That happened. Shout out to my Sydney crew. You know who you are. Greg, I'll see you on Saturday. I'm going to roll out that Death Guard list.
There we go. So
the comments, man.
They're brutal. Those live viewers, they're brutal. You get used to them. You grow thick enough skin eventually after time. But no, really appreciate it. So thank you very much, Pommy Ben, for chatting. It was great.
Thank you, Sam.
About your art. No worries. Thank you. Chatting about your army and TO life and being a gamer and all that jazz. And I'm looking forward to, hopefully, if I don't see you the Sydney GT or RTT or some interstate event, I'll see you Uprising. All things going well. So touch.
100%. I'll be there. I'll be there drinking hard.
There you go. That's what truly matters. So thank you everyone for watching and listening. Until next time, have a good one. Take care, everybody.